Hi all, Paul here. Welcome back to the Anfield View post-match reaction after the Liverpool game that finished 1-1 with Chelsea today. Let's be honest, nobody can be really shocked with the performance, with the result. I know people had expectations, and you even saw from my preview video where essentially I was picking a Liverpool win. To be honest, not because I had high aspirations in terms of expecting better performance for us, because fundamentally the performances haven't been there since day one this season, and never, and at no point have really ever picked up. In recent weeks, I would say the mindset and the work rate is picked up, but the team just has fundamental flaws. It's not fit enough. We don't have enough athletes. Strategy wise, there's more questions day in and day out as to what the tactics and what we're trying to do. I appreciate with players dropping down like flies in terms of injuries, it's not making it any easier on that front. But as we all as we all know, and it's widely acknowledged, look, throughout this season, Liverpool have had plenty enough players to fit for the vast majority of time. And at no point during those periods did we really have a clear direction of travel in terms of strategy, style, lines of play, the philosophy of what we're trying to do, the vision of what we're trying to do. I think if you asked any Liverpool fan, do you feel that you've been entertained this year? I think the answer would be no. At no point. It's basically got 0% on entertainment. For the 40 odd years I've supported Liverpool, this is the worst season for entertainment ever. Ever. Bar nothing. Even in the Roy Hodgson awful era, you still had some stardust of players to cling on to, and whilst it was bleak, look, the very fact that we haven't beaten Chelsea all season, both games against Chelsea have been, let's be honest, bang average. We've lost to Manchester City 3 times. Okay, the one at Anfield was a little bit better, but it wasn't great. And they wiped the floor of us twice away. We've lost twice to Man United without really playing well at either of them. Sure, we put in them sort of around about one good performance against Arsenal. Nothing, we couldn't beat Spurs at home. We couldn't beat Chelsea at home today after they've lost 6 in a row. And I get the fact that you're going to get the best of other teams when they come to Anfield. And I understand that. But I think the issues Liverpool face are a multitude. They're sort of multifaceted and they're layered. When you spend the amount of money that they spend, and I'm going to focus on net spend, because everyone waffles on about the gross spend. But when you have a net spend of around about 180 to 200 million plus agents' fees and all of that, then ultimately expectation will go up. When you get record buys like Isak converts, then the expectation will go up. Unfortunately, I suppose to some extent, what went past Liverpool fans' heads and also pundits and other people that were picking us to win the league this year was the fact that we sold half a team to fund it. When we were buying these players, I've got to be honest, I never really ever envisaged Diaz being one to be sold because I realised how important it was. It wasn't revisionistic. People that seems to put sort of Gakpo and Diaz in the same pedestal, I don't understand these things. And look, I was critical of Diaz because I'd never thought Diaz was at the level of Mane. I mean, for me, there's layers. Like Mane was here, phenomenal player, phenomenal output. Diaz, so Mane was here, Diaz was here, and Gakpo's down here. And that's not pulling Gakpo down. I was like, Gakpo's just really not a winger. He's really not. He had an okay output last year. The thing with Gakpo, and it's not singling him out, but he's just comparing him to Diaz, is that, look, he can go on rolls of scoring get goals, but he doesn't really create that much. For me, he just doesn't bring anywhere near as much to the team. On multi creativity, work rate, mindset, whole different factors apart from just goals. And so last summer, I think we all underplayed just how much creativity had gone out the team. And unfortunately for Liverpool, the creativity with Trent, the creativity, work rate, and goals from Diaz, even the output in terms of energy and sort of drive from people like Nunes, God rest his soul. We all knew how valuable Jota was, but I think when you take Jota, Nunes, Diaz, all athletes, all hardworking, all with a winning mindset, all out of the team, I think we really undersold just how much energy was going to be sort of lost out the back door. And what we brought in is technically gifted players like Verts, technically gifted, doesn't really give you that much energy. I know he wasn't in today, so I'm not, you can't lambast him for that. And Isak is just a clinical finisher. I've got no doubts on what we will get from Isak, but you have to get him the supply. But I think that Liverpool fans, if we could see the direction of travel, if we could see the vision and we could understand what Arne Slot is actually trying to produce with the team, then maybe he'll get a bit more slack or a little bit more grace. I don't think you just get grace because you won. Like, look, we're all grateful for the fact that you won the league, and we'd all give you a hug, give you a handshake. Fantastic. But that doesn't give you a pass to then have one of the worst seasons in Liverpool's history, and it doesn't give you a pass for the way the probably the worst entertainment value that we've ever had. So performance and entertainment value on top of results have been horrendous. And I think it's almost getting revisited, revision, sorry, as time goes on, if we qualify, which is still a big if, we need City to do us a favour against Bournemouth. But if we get in the Champions League, everyone's talking like, oh yeah, but we've qualified. It's like, what are you talking about? Even if we qualify in the top 4 or 5 to get in the Champions League, doesn't exonerate us from all the horrific the whole season has been awful. I feel sorry for fans that have spent thousands upon thousands to go and watch us this year. They've been treated to some of the worst entertainment of football ever. Ever. I mean, in 40 years of following Liverpool, I can't find a worse season than this. The seasons with Klopp where we had massive injury problems, we at least started well and then picked up at the back end. And you always knew that, yeah, okay, we didn't spend enough money on backup centre backs and we should have used some other centre backs earlier. But you knew why it wasn't working. It was purely injuries. This situation with Slot, it isn't just down to injuries. Because for the vast majority of the season, you're sitting there saying that okay, it's down to Isak. Well, Isak was there until nearly sort of late November, December, and so we had a few injuries at right back, but outside of that, we've been pretty good. Okay, we've lost in the last sort of 4 to 6 weeks, Salah out for a few weeks, and they obviously lost Ekateke out. But for the vast majority of the season, we've had plenty of players that are fit, and the vast majority of the whole midfield's been fit. The vast majority of the defence has been fit. Okay, you've had Alisson out for a few, but I understand the fact that he can't predict that Mo Salah is going to be awful this season. I get that, and you could sit there and say, "Oh yeah, but when in the summer we're going to find somebody to replace that, which gives us more output." And it's like, yeah, well, we obviously know that has to be the case. I mean, look, the very fact that Salah's at the age that he's at some point it was going to happen. So at some point we did have to get a replacement, but we did also choose to sell. It's a bit like we have Verts and Isak to replace Salah's output, but then go and sell Diaz. So it's like, okay, well then who replaced Diaz's output? I don't know whether there's just a natural assumption like if you take the amount of goals that we've lost from Jota, Nunes, and Diaz out the team, and then Gakpo hasn't even performed at his normal level, let alone replacing any of those. So we'll just take Jota, Nunes, and Diaz out of the equation. Nobody's picked up the slack of their goals. So you think those 3 players are obviously not with the club anymore. God rest his soul in Jota's case. And then you look at it and go, well, Gakpo's not even been at the level he was at last year, and he was basically a part 2, a backup really for Diaz, really, or occasionally alternating. And then you look at on the other side, well, Mo's been sort of what I don't know, 1/10, no, not 1/10, but I mean, he's about 6 league goals compared to his high 20s last year. And you're like, well, okay, well, he's miles down. Nobody's replaced the other 3. So in essence, let's be honest, we've lost so many goals. We've lost about 30 plus goals out of this team easily. We've lost basically, we wonder where we're at now. We've got an aged defence, It's very simple. It's a very simple scenario for Liverpool at the moment. We're very predictable, and we're a little bit delusional as to where our current state. We've lost 30 goals out of the team. Salah, Jota, Nunes, Diaz, and nobody's basically filled that void. Isak, because he's been injured. First, has just had a bit of a nightmare of a season. And Ekitek's done well, but he hasn't done phenomenal. You could go, oh yeah, Ekitek's okay, but at a push, Ekitek's maybe replaced. Let's just say Ekitek's maybe replaced Jota's goals, but not necessarily the output for the team. To say Ekitek's okay, Isak's not replaced really anybody's goals because he hasn't scored that many. Verts hasn't scored that many. And then Salah's, so we're still, which way you slice the pie, we're still about 30 plus goals down on the season. We've got a defence that Virgil's made mistakes aplenty because he's getting old, and he's got a left back he's trying to sort of build a new relationship with. Kirk has struggled for 4 months. Kanate's had a nightmare of a season. Alisson's been injured for half the season and not been at his usual levels because of his kicking and hamstring weaknesses and all these different things. And then obviously the right back problems, we can never keep one fit. And we lost the creativity from Trent and the goals from Trent. And so it's not rocket science to see where Liverpool's problems are at. The problem, I suppose the big issue for the club and us as fans is that we're not seeing any green shoots of the styles of play, the vision, the pattern, the road of travel that's going to lead to pathway to glory, the roads to sort of gold at the end. And that is an issue for Slot, because whilst people in the club may love him and may want to give him the grace because he won the league title and all that, as fans, we've not been entertained. We can't see any train of thought of what he's trying to do. More and more decisions are going wrong than right. And it looks like a massive job to turn it around. And then obviously this time we've got Mo leaving and Robertson leaving. There's question marks on the culture. There's been question marks on the fitness and training regime all season. I think Heitinger's coming back. And you then start worrying, okay, well, are we awful fitness-wise because we lost Heitinger this season? There's so many questions as to the current sort of state of Liverpool. Is anybody shocked by today's performance? No. When I did my prediction for the game, I basically said I'm only picking us to win based on the basis that Chelsea have been awful, not on the basis that we're good. And that is damn. I mean, I think if you went across every single sort of pundit, almost everybody was really picking us to win, mostly on the basis that Chelsea have lost the last 6. It wasn't the fact that Liverpool were any great shakes. It wasn't. It was the same scenario where it's almost been all season. Like Liverpool have been poor from literally day one this season. They have. At no point have they ever improved, and that worries you. The very fact that there's just not been any real signs of any coaching, any improvement. It's a very tough situation for the club, because ultimately it's all well and good to say we don't want to spend X, Y, and Z in the summer. We don't have the means to. We don't have a choice. We're gonna have to spend a lot of money. I don't mean 400 million net. I mean we're gonna have to spend at least 200 million net spend, and we're gonna have to spend it wisely. And there is a lot of question marks over Slot's style of play. I've put it in other videos. My question mark is on, can a Dutch style of play work in the Premier League? It didn't for the Ten Hag didn't work, Van Gaal didn't work, Hullet didn't work, Koeman didn't work. I'm not saying it doesn't work in other leagues. I'm not, and I love Dutch players. Liverpool have had plenty, over the years. I love Dirk Kuyt, and Overmars, and Robin van Persie was a phenomenal player. Obviously back in the heyday of Hullet, Van Basten, Rijkaard, I grew up on, on sort of Euro '88. So look, I get it. I 100%, Edgar Davids and Seedorf, and look, I get the magic of sort of Dutch players, and I'll be forever grateful for Slot for winning the league last year. but I just think it was a perfect storm of his adjusted tactics with a finely tuned physical freak of a squad that was trained by Slot and a culture that was there, and his tweaks and slight changes worked like a dream. Coupled with the fact the league was rubbish last year, Man City's wheels fell off, Arsenal capitulated, Man United were awful, and Chelsea were bang average. And so let's be honest, the last one standing was us. We played amazingly well, and our wheels have fallen off since February last year. This is what people seem to be forgetting. A lot of all Liverpool fans have forgotten, but everybody outside of Liverpool have forgotten. Liverpool have been basically awful since last February. Let that sink in. Last February to now, we haven't improved. We have not improved. And all the amount of money that we spent, frankly, and it's not rocket science saying this, we've spent 200 million net spend to go 10 steps backward. And I know the argument is that, well, at some point we have to transition this squad. Well, this transition's been the worst transition ever. Who takes a title winning team, spends 200 million net spend, and then goes 10 steps backwards? It's just a fact, isn't it, guys? So, as for the performance today, we played okay-ish. A pretty, for a home game against a struggling Chelsea team. Okay, was it the worst performance we put in this year? No. Given the fact that we've got so many, Isak, Wirtz, Ekateke, Salah, so four of your most creative players all out injured, and you're basically left with Gakpo, Rio, and Frimpong, then I don't maybe expecting the light fantastic when, let's be honest, we couldn't perform all season when all those players were fit. And that's the reality check, I think. I'm not going to go hard on the team today. Do you know why? Because when we've spent all season playing pretty abysmal in every game, even when the vast majority of those players have been fit and playing together outside of Isak, then, expecting this version of the team to play better than when the superstars were playing would be slightly crazy of me to say, wouldn't it, really? I think it's almost out of desperation that we're expecting Frimpong to be the second coming of Mane or John Barnes, isn't it, at the moment? Look, Frimpong is just a workman-like wing-back with lightning pace and a tiny bit of ability. He's not a bad buy, per se. He's a squad buy. He's not a Trent. He's not a phenomenal right back or right winger. He's just a good squad option. Gakpo is just a high squad option. He's not a first team player for a title winning team. He's just not. People like talk it up as if Gakpo. No, it wasn't. Diaz was the first team starter. It was, Liverpool's fit 11 last year would have been Diaz, Jota, and Salah as the main three, and then you'd bring Gakpo on. They were the fulcrum, for the team of last year. And you can't, what can you say? I mean, a great strike by Gravenberch today. Should the keeper have saved it? Yeah, let's be honest. Doesn't diminish the strike. It wasn't in the postage stamp, was it? It wasn't really in the top corner. It was really a little bit high up. It was in pretty much the centre of the goal. A world class. I mean, put it this way: if Alisson was in goal, you'd expect him to save that. And frankly, the world's top 20 keepers, you would expect them to palm that over the bar or palm it wide. Equally, it's a great strike. Still a great strike. Fair play for Gravenberch. I always think Gravenberch I've never once been critical of Gravenberch more from an attacking perspective. The only time I ever criticised Gravenberch is the fact that he gets penciled in as our number 6 when he blatantly is nothing like a number 6. He's not a number 6, and he's meant to be in the team to actually defend, and to behave like a number 6. And frankly, this season he shined more as an attacking midfielder than he has. It's almost like his attacking midfield instincts have been good, but his defensive side's gone AWOL, so he's been awful on that. But nobody else. I mean, McAllister's not a defensive midfielder, and Szoboszlai, had a great season, but he's an attacking midfielder. So we have our deficiencies. Virgil's not having, for me, a great season. Okay, for the age that he's at, you can't expect him to be peak Virgil anymore. Some games good, some games average. It's very rare that I give Virgil an 8 or 9 these days. I think sometimes he can hit an 8, but more often than not, you get a sort of 7-ish. And then Canate can be a 9 or even a 10, and then he can also be a 4 or a 3. I'm not sure. You don't know which Canate is ever going to turn up. Usually, the first 10 minutes tell you what Canate you're going to get in a game. And Kirkez is still a young player trying to find his way in a ridiculously struggling team. Look, before we all lambast Kirkez, there's more senior players like McAllister that are more at fault. McAllister, Salah, Gakpo, Canate would be the ones that I would put the spotlight on if you really want to criticise more than throwing Kirkez under it. Because look, we expect far more. I don't know what the reason for McAllister's massive drop off. He's gone from being a star player for our team to being one of the worst. It's like he's gone from an 8 to a 2. I mean, I would love somebody to come out and actually at least explain what has happened to him. And equally, my final thoughts really on today, guys. Look, a draw is a fair result, wasn't the XG 0.47, 0.50, shots at 8 to us, 6 to them. Pretty much, it was what it was, wasn't it? I mean, we could have lost it a little bit towards the end. We could have been 2 up, maybe. A hard chance for Virgil, really, to expect a centre back. Even our forwards would struggle to put that one away. I think the goal that we let him was pretty soft, pretty bang average defending, wasn't it? Let's be honest. The game was pretty much was what it was. Two teams that are struggling, and at no point have convinced anybody of anything. Sometimes Chelsea can be very, very good. And look, bottom line is Chelsea's midfield's better than ours. It is. On paper, their midfield's better than ours. We love Soboslai. He had a great season. But Casado, Fernandez, and when you put Lavia or whoever else in that midfield is better than Gravenberch, McAllister, and Soboslai, especially this season's version of McAllister. Last season's version of Gravenberch and McAllister, you may have different questions, but let's be honest, Casado is the best midfielder out of all of them. And I love Soboslai, but I still think Casado is the best DM or one of the top 3 DMs in the world. Enzo Fernandez is a curious one, but that's for Chelsea channels, isn't it? Enzo Fernandez is a strange one. He's never hit the heights that I suppose everybody expected him to do. After the sort of World Cup win. Yeah, where do we go from here? With all roads lead to basically hoping Man City beat Bournemouth. God bless their souls. I actually like Bournemouth, but need Man City to get a win there just to ensure that we definitely have got Champions League football, and then we're not all panicking, for the Villa game. I mean, there could be a world where Villa have already qualified, for the Champions League, and then they're resting players, obviously with a view to their Europa final the following week. I don't really fancy having to play Brentford at home with a must-win game to get in the Champions League, because my faith in this team and the squad this year is at 0. As I say, love for the club will never change. Love, as a Liverpool fan for 40 odd years, like most people, your love for the club never goes anywhere. The enthusiasm and belief are 2 different things. Enthusiasm for this current team and setup is 0. Belief, it's probably done about 10%. I don't even know who I'm believing in. Certainly don't believe in the manager now. I think I can hang with some losses, I can hang with some performances, but I can't hang with a whole season where I've just not seen any adjustments that really give me a reason to believe. Give me a reason to believe outside of the fact that you actually won the title last year with a squad that was Klopp's, that was the fitness that was Slots. And whilst you did make some tactical judgments, and I get it, but everything that's been put in place since this squad and team is, I would say, 75% yours now, is not worked. And so give me that, give me a reason that isn't just based purely on last season's setup, because the current setup, it hasn't worked at all. Be great to hear your thoughts, guys. We roll on to Villa next, and then Brentford, and then finally we hopefully win the Champions League, and we can just forget this season ever happened, and the club will do what it will do. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's their job to put the best things in place for us to achieve success for the wider picture of the club and the fan base, and let's hope they make the right decisions on that. Speak to you more soon. You take care.